Hey everybody, Mike from Baltimore Rides here, wrapping up Monday, April 2nd. We're into the wee hours now of Tuesday morning. The night is done, and I wanted to cover a couple things real quick, but I'll talk about Monday night first. $200 night, that is my new break point, guys. Like, I don't stop until I've got to $200. And excuse me, and now that I'm, how do I want to put this? I've talked about efficiency a lot lately, but now that I've kind of tweaked my strategies a little bit, I'm finding myself hitting that number a lot more successfully. My goal ultimately is to expand upon that number, but 200 a night is definitely a good, comfortable number to work with. I go back and sometimes skim through some of my older videos, and it's funny how my targets have changed. And I'm trying to think about how I really want to say this, but over the course of almost a year, we're just about a month away. It was May 4th when I started driving, even though I didn't start recording videos until I think a couple weeks later. But, it was May 4th was the first day I drove for Uber. I remember it very, very well. And, Tuesday's the 3rd, so Wednesday would be, almost 30 days shy of my 1-year anniversary with Uber, which doesn't seem like a lot, guys. And if you think about it, I was talking to somebody tonight about the workplace and jobs and longevity in a workplace environment. And, I asked the guy, as I ask a lot of people, I said, we were talking about what he did for a living and kind of, his job. And I always ask people, do they take good care of you? And usually I get a middle grade answer. Every now and then I get people that say, like, yeah, I really love my job. I love my boss. I love everything. But a lot of times, I get that kind of, they're okay, pays the bills, which is the average answer, I think, for most people in the working world. Most people aren't in love with their jobs. They're just, it's their job, and it's how they support their families and pay their bills and do whatever. So, he said he'd been there for 3 years, and I said, well, that's a pretty good run nowadays. Sorry about that. Some guy's drifting in the lane ahead of me. I think he's probably drunk. And we were just talking, and he was a little bit younger than me. He was in his 30s, and we were talking about how, some of the generations, especially the younger generations, longevity is a difficult thing for them. They job hop and jump fences a lot, always chasing kind of like the grass that's greener on the other side. And I said to him, honestly, that's not really something that's specific to these generations. We did it too. We just didn't necessarily realize it. And the timestamp was a little bit longer in between our job hops. But that's all based upon our attention span. I said, we could go a couple years, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 years in between jobs before we would feel frustrated or indifferent or something and feel the need to change. But this younger generation, the difference is not in that. It's that their attention span is shorter. They can't stay interested or connected to a job in a motivated way for a very long period of time. And that's honestly more than just their work balance. It's their life. If you ever have been driving with millennials, and I don't know if you guys have an aux cord in your car, which is that auxiliary cable that allows them to use their phone to play music. What you'll find, if ever you want to do a social experiment, is buy an aux cord at Five Below or wherever, and then offer it to all the younger people that get in your car. Just say, hey, you want to put music on? You can be in control of the music, go for it. And what you'll find is if there's a group of 2 or more, they won't get through a 3-minute song. They won't. They just won't. They'll, a minute and a half into a song, they're already skipping to the next track. They're already jumping to the next idea, the next thing they want to hear, the next impulse in their head to say, oh, let's play that song. Oh, and I like this song. Oh, no, I like that song. And it's that impulsivity, that impatience that I find really interesting, because I feel like it's a defining characteristic for them. For my generation, I'm 41, 77. So I was born in 1977. So for my generation, I'm a workaholic. My generation, we were bred to be type A personality, overachievers. Everybody had to be number one. Everybody had to be the best at whatever you were doing. And, there's some good that comes with that, but there's some bad that comes with it too. And the bad is that I'm a workaholic. I struggle with work-life balance, like I think everybody else roughly around my generation. We don't know when to necessarily unplug. We don't know necessarily when to make the right decision about work-life balance. I'm learning it now as I get older. I feel like I've definitely learned it in the past, say, 2 years, but it's a struggle, and it's kind of a daily struggle. And that's the it's kind of a joke when you think about it, the alcoholic, which is an illness, it's a disease of sorts. Workaholic is kind of, in a sense, it's a play on words of that same type of addictive personality. And it can be just as serious. I feel it's not as life destroying, but, and I have somebody that's very close to me. One of my best friends is a recovering alcoholic. So I can say this with a level of understanding of the challenges that he's gone through in the past 7 years. But as he's 7 years sober now at this point, I think maybe 7, no, maybe 8. He might be 8 this year. But again, it's for those of us that are addicted to work, that are just always striving to work. We do it in that same sort of creepy, addicted kind of way, where we don't necessarily know when to say enough is enough. But that's a specific thing that our generation struggles with. I don't think all the generations necessarily are programmed with that kind of a work imbalance. So, that being said, there's always going to be generational differences. There really are. And I don't think I've mastered it. I think it's a daily struggle for me. I think there's some days where you guys are telling me, Mike, you need to unplug, you need to take a day off, you need to get some rest, you look like shit, pardon my language. But, you guys check me sometimes and remind me that I need to slow down. But my goals, and I was talking about goals, which is kind of what started me on this, detour in the conversation. My goals are to always do my personal best. And part of that is my programming and the way that my brain is wired, to achieve and then to exceed. And I struggle with that, because my milestones a year ago, being nostalgic, were $125 on a Monday to Tuesday. And then it kind of became $150. And then I would sometimes push, but really I struggled to get $150 on a Tuesday or a Monday. I did. Most of the time that was a Herculean effort. It was just a feat of amazement, and it took hours and hours to get. And now I find myself taking more breaks, longer breaks, maybe even starting a little bit later, and maybe wrapping up a little bit earlier and achieving more. So as we get better at things, that doesn't mean that we're going to take it easy. It just means that we need to push ourselves further. As we plateau and reach new milestones, that's what we do. If you're not doing that in your life, you should be. Now, I've talked about goal setting. They should be SMART goals. They should be realistic, attainable, measurable, and timely. Those are the letters, and specific. So I've got them in the wrong order, but whatever. They should be goals that are not pie in the sky fantasies, because those goals will just destroy your self-confidence. If I set a goal to do $400 a night every night, I would fail night after night after night, and then eventually I would just feel defeated. And I would internalize all that defeat, and it would crush me. So setting a goal of $200 a night for myself at this point is not easy, but it's not a layup, but it's not pie in the sky. It's not so hard that I'm never going to achieve it either. It's a balance between being difficult, but not being impossible. And I like to strive to push. I like to know that, okay, it used to be I had to have $100 in at 10 o'clock, and then I'd have $150 in by 2 a.m. And those were kind of my watermarks. Now my expectation is that I have $100 in by 7:30. And then I want to have $150 in by 9:30, and then I want to have $200 in by midnight. And that's kind of my goal, is to be at, before the clock strikes 12, I want to be at $200. And if I start my day around 2 o'clock-ish, which is usually when I turn on my app, after I've kind of positioned myself where I'm going to start for the day, that's roughly 10 hours. Now, if I can shave it down to 11 o'clock finish, or if I start a little bit later, or if I take, an extra break or two in there, then a 10-hour day becomes a 9-hour day, which really becomes an 8-hour day. That's my math equation, guys. Now yours may be different. Maybe different because you're working part-time. Maybe different because, like Joanna, you're working overnight shift. You're working like an 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. or, you've fluctuated the hours around the times that you want to drive. And that's okay too. Everybody's going to drive different times of the day. Some people like to break their day up, and they do a little bit in the morning, and then they take a break, and then they do a little bit at night. However you want to slice up that pie to get your share is up to you. You don't have to do it my way. You don't. But whatever way you do it, you want to carve it up so that there's measurable blocks of time, and then you have measurable goals set against those times. And if it's $100 per 5 hours or $100 per 4 hours, so be it. If I can do $100 in 5 hours with a break or two in that 5-hour block, that's great. That's really great. And that means that every 5-hour block I should do $100. And if I'm not, then I need to look at that 5-hour block. And then you can cut that block in half and say every 2.5 hours I should have $50 in. And so on and so forth. You guys get the analogies here. You understand what I'm saying is that math is easy. Just break your goals down into bite-sized pieces. The same way I take my weekly goal and I break it down into a daily goal. Or I take my monthly goal and I break it down into weekly goals. That's how you set goals for yourself. If you flop one day and you're short, well, then you got to make it up. Otherwise, you're going to miss your goal. If I have a $150 day one day, then I've either got to suck it up and have a soft week, or I've got to make up $50 somewhere. And maybe I do it an extra $25 in 2 nights, or I push one night and I do $250 one night. There's lots of different ways you can strategize that. But if you're going to make a goal for yourself, you've got to stand to your goals. Now, let's take this past week for an example. I missed 2 days. I missed the day my mom had her stroke, and then I missed Monday because I was out sick. If I know that I'm going to lose 2 business days, and I'm really only going to, realistically, I really only take 1 day off a week. Sometimes my Sundays end up being kind of like partials, but if I've built my budget around a 6-day work week or 5.5, whatever you want to call it, then losing an extra business day in there, losing my Thursday, for example, is going to realistically set me back. Now, can I make up that $200? Maybe. maybe not. This particular week, I didn't get any DC quests. I haven't driven enough in DC for Uber to load me with some. And I'm disenchanted with the power driver bonus because it frustrates the hell out of me that I can't get enough peak hour trips to make it worthwhile. So, those are all parts of the equation that you have to justify. So that's that. So that's enough about tonight and kind of what went into tonight and why. Some other stuff going on that's relevant is, a bunch of you guys are asking me for help with your taxes or questions about your taxes. I am okay, fielding questions, but what I don't want to do is I can't prepare your taxes for you for a bunch of reasons. Obviously, ethically, I'm not a legal tax preparer. And if I screwed something up, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. It would break my heart if I screwed up your fiscal taxes. And, from a legal standpoint, I can't put myself in liability like that. I have a family to take care of. But I can point you guys in the right direction. And so if you watch my video and what I'm not doing, say, check this box, put this number in, put this number in. I'm not telling you that. What I'm telling you is this is how self-employed ride-sharing drivers have to think about taxes. These are the types of things you can deduct. This is what the mileage standard deduction is, and these are the things that it takes into consideration. Now, you can't write off your gas if you're taking the mileage deduction, because the mileage deduction covers all your vehicle expenses. It's a different way of the IRS kind of estimating your vehicle expenses for the year. But other business expenses are cell phone, internet, any supplies you bought for the car, cleaning supplies, your cell phone holder that hooks to your dash or your windshield, whatever, a dash cam, any of those other things you spent money on, Windex to wash your windows, whatever the things, car washes, any of that stuff that is not considered vehicle maintenance, fuel, oil changes, etc., that would go into the standard mileage deduction are added expenses. If you do any work from home, like research, or you watch YouTube videos like mine, or you read any websites that you think will help you better your business, that counts. That's research, and you're allowed to do research to get better at your job. It's actually a deductible expense. So if your research is all on the internet and you're paying your cable bill at home to get on the internet, then the portion of your cable bill that applies towards the internet, not the TV part, but the internet part, is now deductible. If you're, there's lots of things. So go back and watch my tax video. I don't know the exact date. It was back in February. If you have tax questions. The other part to taxes that I can't really help you with is, your self-employed ride-sharing portion of your taxes is only income. It's income and deductions. Obviously, all the other questions that go into filing your taxes that are personal of a nature, your marital status, whether you had any student loan deductions or mortgage interest or whatever, those are all questions that I don't have the answers to for you because they're specific to your life. And some of those are personal things that I probably should never know about you. So, because of privacy. So that's why I can't do your taxes for you. But I can certainly help you understand the ride-sharing portion so that you don't leave money on the table. Because that's the battle between us taxpayers and the IRS. Is what can we deduct? What deductions or credits or whatever can we deduct to minimize our taxable income the best way possible legally. You know, the rules of the game, so to speak. You know, Monopoly says when you land on the jail, you know, do not pass go and go directly to jail. Do not collect $200. You got to roll the dice on Monopoly, and you got to move your little piece around the board. You can't just put your piece on the ones that you want to buy and say, I'm going to jump to the boardwalk and buy the boardwalk. You have to wait until you roll the right die and land there. Taxes works the same way. It's a bunch of rules. It's a bunch of rules that say, if this, then you can do that. If you did this, then you can write off that. If you spent this much money in medical expenses, then you can write off this. And if you just go down the list and think about it, then you can kind of just plug in the answers. It's kind of like, fill in the blanks. What people don't know is that there's a lot of little things that the IRS allows for, but that they don't advertise. They don't make it easy for you to understand what all the business expenses you can deduct are, or which meals you can deduct 100% and which meals you can only deduct 50%. And that's where, like, for me, and I've been doing my own taxes for 2 decades now, for 20 years. But I've become, over the past, more than 10 years, a huge fan of TurboTax. I used to buy the software when it came in a DVD and the whole 9 yards. And then you'd have to print out your paperwork and mail it off. Back in the old school days, before you could electronically submit. And over the years, they've gotten better and better and better. And now, you pay for it. I still pay every year. It's not like it's free to file your taxes with TurboTax. Your federal and your state. Your federal with Uber is free. If you're using Uber or Lyft or QuickBooks Self-Employed with TurboTax gives you the self-employed level for free. Now, you still got to pay for your state. That's how they get you. But I upgrade to the premium one anyway, where it gives you the extra checking and the protection in case you screw something up. It's worth it. It's a service well spent. And then it's tax deductible. So whatever money you spend preparing your taxes, you can write off the following year on that tax. So this February I paid whatever I paid, $100 or so for my taxes. Next year I'll write it off in my 2018 taxes. So it's an expense. So, those are all kind of things that I want to answer for you guys. But again, I have to tread lightly. I can't just do it for you. I can't. It's not good right there. I can't do that. But I can help you make sure you don't miss things. I can definitely help you with that. Other stuff. Jeez, I got a lot of things rattling around my brain. This video is getting a little bit long though, and I'm feeling fuzzy-headed. I don't know if I've remembered everything, but I'm going to stop where we are. We're at 20 minutes now, and that's kind of another long video, and I'm trying to keep these things as short as I can. I hope some of you guys got a laugh out of my my April Fool's Day video. It probably was not that convincing, but I just pulled it out of my butt. It was kind of like a quick gag. So this one will be up. I will be on the road tomorrow, Tuesday. My mom has still not moved into rehab yet. They're having a hard time finding a spot for her. She has military insurance because my dad was a veteran, so it's some of the facilities don't take that, so whatever. It's just they're taking a little bit longer. Plus, it was the weekend with the holiday and all that stuff, so they're just, it's tricky to get some of those admissions people at these rehabilitation places on a long holiday weekend, because they're kind of like administrative people. They're not medical, so they're getting there. But that's that, guys. So if something comes up and I got to step away to help her when they transfer her to the rehab place, then that'll happen. But if not, I will be on the road tomorrow, guys. So everybody get some rest. Calling for some weather, but they don't know what. It's not doing anything right now, but it looks gloomy as heck out there. So could be rain, could be freezing stuff, could be snow, could be fire and brimstone the way weather is in Maryland and Virginia and DC. So, that's that. On the bright side, though, that weird Chinese space station fell into the ocean and did not crash and kill us all. So the media was hyping that crap up like crazy. So yeah, if you were paying attention, there was a gigantic space station that China had launched, more than a decade ago, floating around up in space, and they kind of lost control of it over the years and said, oh well, and it came flying down into the sky and crashed into the Pacific Ocean somewhere. So there you have it. But space junk falls out of the sky all the time, guys. You have a better chance of having a $500 night than getting hit by a piece of space junk. That's all I'm going to say about that. So have a good night, guys. Get some sleep. I am going to get some sleep. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Later.